The Geneva and King James Bibles and Protestant creeds. Of no small importance to our study is the fact that this corrupt translation had an influence upon the Protestant churches in Europe, England, and America. That influence carried over into the Geneva Bible, which has further problems, as well as into other early versions of the English Bible, and even into the King James Bible of today. As the Vulgate was filled with Augustinianisms, the Geneva Bible was filled with Calvinism, in the text as well as in voluminous notes. H.S. Miller's General Biblical Introduction says, "It was a revision of Tyndale's, with an introduction by Calvin, the work of English reformers, assisted by Beza, Calvin, and possibly others." J.R. Dorr, in Old Bibles, an account of the early versions of the English Bible, 2nd edition, adds, "Almost every chapter of the Geneva Bible has voluminous notes full of Calvinistic doctrine." Andrew Edgar, in the Bibles of England, declares, "At the time the Geneva Bible was first published, Calvin was the ruling spirit in Geneva. All the features of his theological, ecclesiastical, political, and social system are accordingly reflected in the marginal annotations. The doctrine of predestination is proclaimed to be the head cornerstone of the gospel." W. Hoare says, in The Evolution of the English Bible, "Considered as a literary whole, it, the Geneva Bible, has about it the character of a Calvinist manifesto, a book with a special purpose." F. F. Bruce adds, "The notes of the Geneva Bible are, to be sure, unashamedly Calvinistic in doctrine. The people of England and Scotland learned much of their biblical exegesis from these notes." The Geneva Bible had a very great influence in the shaping of the King James Bible. Robinson is even more emphatic. A large part of its, that is, the Geneva Bible innovations, are included in the authorized version of the King James. Sometimes the Geneva text and the Geneva margin are taken over intact. Sometimes the text becomes the margin and the margin the text. Sometimes the margin becomes the text and no alternative is offered. Very often, the Genevan margin becomes the authorized version text, with or without verbal change. Further documentation could be given, but this should be sufficient to trace briefly the influence from that ultimate Roman Catholic, Augustine, through the Latin Vulgate and his writings upon Calvin, and through Calvin into the Geneva Bible and on into the King James Bible, and thus into the pulpits and homes of Protestants throughout Europe, England, and America. It is small wonder, then, that those who, like Arminius, dared to question Calvinism were overwhelmed with opposition. Of course, various synods and assemblies were held to formulate accepted creeds and to punish the dissenters, but the decks were stacked in favor of Calvinism, and no influence to mitigate this error was allowed. This will be documented in chapters 5 and 6.